So let's talk magic in the media. Our first example is going to be the books and TV show The Magicians. So first off, let me warn you guys that I am going to be spoiling a whole bunch of the books and the TV show if you guys have not read all of the books or watched all of the show. However, if you're okay with spoilers and stuff just for the content and the ideas that I'm going to generate here, then go ahead and watch it. But if you don't like spoilers and stuff, then I don't know. Thanks for clicking on it. But anyway, so The Magicians is really a fantastic, in my mind, a fantastic book series and TV series because it brings magic itself to a lot of people in a way that hasn't exactly been done before. I think the author has definitely done a whole bunch of research into how modern occultism works and things like that to kind of really make a sense of a lot of different things. It's definitely not as fluffy as Charmed. It's more real and more raw, and to me that's what magic is also. So I wrote a whole list of things this morning while chugging my coffee, and I think I'm just gonna start going through it. So um, first off, to the magicians, magic is something that takes practice and patience to learn and trial and error. With learning the different hand positions, having to memorize a whole ton of things, and even just the nitty gritty grind of having to practice some things a multitude of times over and over. Like in the book, when Q starts off, he's given like a marble that he has to manipulate, and he was doing it for months. And I don't know about you guys, but the patience for that would just boggle my mind and just be crazy. Um, you know, with break bills and everything, and just learning magic, the idea that it's a study, it's both a mixture of a skill and a talent. That not everybody is born with this kind of thing, but that whether you have a proclivity for it or not, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill and a lot of talent, just like musical instruments do, which I think is another really interesting aspect of it. I already talked about the second bullet. So one of the other things is there's things that magic can and can't do. If you're referencing the show, you could think about Cancer Puppy, which moment of silence for Cancer Puppy. Sad. Um, but even in I think it's at the end of the first book, maybe, where Q is recovering after the confrontation with the Beast, aka Martin Chatwin, where he's lost Alice, lost where the hell is Penny and whatever, and he wakes up with with, I think it was like the centaurs taking care of him and stuff, and he kind of is just lost for a little bit. And there's this one part where he's got these rats are in his room, and he stops their hearts and then starts them up again. The idea that you can't bring someone back from the dead, but at the same time, if with medical technology, we can restart a heart. Well, magic can do the same thing. Um, Hypothetically, not that I've ever done it. I ain't no witch doctor, so to speak. That was a good pun. Anyway, so oh yeah, one of the other things is unintentional magic, which can really happen. I don't want to step too far into like the whole new agey manifestation, the secret junk, because I I really trash talk that kind of stuff a lot. But for example, I can't remember if it was both in the TV show and the book, but I think I recall it from the TV show where Elliot admits to killing someone, where it was kind of an accident with a bully when he was a kid. He found out that he had a proclivity for magic because all he had to do was think about the fact that this bully would, he just kind of hoped that the kid would get hit by the bus that was coming, and the next thing you know, push the kid's thrown in front of the bus, and boom, and that's when he realized that he had you know powers of telekinesis. Um, Unintentional magic can happen through like manifesting things over and over and over again in our lives because our energy calls that to us. So that's why we really have to have a solid intention when we do our spell work, and Just even if you are intending on one thing but you really believe in another thing, you're going to manifest that thing that you believe rather than the thing that you want, which is why you have to both want it and believe it. um let's see. hmm. Yep. Next thing is that, energy input versus energy output. So what I'm going to be referencing here is in book 3 with Mayakovsky's coins. The guy from Breakville South, where they travel to see him because they need to figure out how to how to generate a massive amount of energy at a given time. And as it turns out, they come to realize, or Q comes to realize, in a massive drunken haze, that Mayakovsky has an incorporate bond placed on him, which is why he cannot leave Breakville South. And he Mayakovsky's been working for years on building the energy to break that through these, I think it was 3 coins. And so Q ends up using those coins for very massive spell work rites. I think he only uses 2 of them, or maybe all 3. I can't exactly remember. I looked them up, but I sent my copies of the books to my friend who hasn't read them yet. If you're watching this, I kind of hope that you're okay with spoilers, but get reading. Anyway, so there's energy input versus energy output. If you really want something when you are working spell work, then you have to really put the energy into it. If you want something that is, a big change in your life, the spell work that you work and then falling in accord with it afterwards needs to have a lot of energy in it. You can't have a simple tiny candle spell for getting a big change in your life. The more elaborate, the more ornate, and the more energy that you raise, the more likely the thing that you want to occur is going to occur, and the more energy that it requires to get that thing done means you got to put the energy into it when you raise the energy in your ritual space and spell work and things like that. One of the other things is that magic being a talent and skill that comes from the gods, which is why the gods were able to shut off magic, which is explained in a much better way, I think, in the books, although seeing it being portrayed in the TV show was very interesting. One of the other things that I do want to say on a little segue here is that the TV show definitely, they, what is it called, like creative freedom or creative license with changing Janet's name. In the book she's Janet, in the TV show she's Margot. That drives me nuts. But the creative license with changing the plot a little bit means you can kind of go 2 different stories, whether you read the books or watch the TV show, which I do think is kind of neat. But still, I like when things stick to the book, Put a like on this video if you guys would watch an entire Harry Potter series if one movie was like 7 hours long and contained everything in the book, but on screen. Yeah, I'd have to do that series too next. Maybe next. I don't know yet. But so the idea that magic is a talent that came from the gods. If you look into folklore and stuff and old legends and things, like different gods gave us different talents. They came down and they taught us how to do metalworking, astrology, writing, alchemy, medicine, any of those things. A lot of tales say that we were given those things from the gods. I should have done some research on this, but forgive me here because it's not even 8 a.m. yet. But the idea of plowing, or in Sumerian folklore, the plow for agriculture was given to humans by the gods. I want to say it was Enki that did it, but I'm not sure. Fact check me on that if you want. Because I'm not going to do an edit afterwards and leave it in little words in the video that some other people do, because I'm just trying to flow through all this stuff. So let's see. Yeah, the next one. The idea that certain rituals require various tools, timing, and specific materials to work properly. That speaks to high magic ceremony things like that. Where that's why a lot of things from different candles to candle colors to herbs to days of the week to the phases of the moon. All those things, they have different energetic correspondences that if you work with those things, it can enhance your spell work. You know, you can kind of go the hedge witchy way where if you need something done, you do it now. But if you work with the currents and the energies of all the different things around us, from the stars to the elements to the timings of the of certain astrological events like eclipses and full moons and new moons and whatnot, that can add a little bit more oomph to your spell work, and I like how they included that in the magicians. Um, One of the other things is that magic is a messy thing. The way that it's described in one of the books is that it's very raw, it's very messy. There's which does give a proclivity to the fact that it can be customized to almost everybody, and I'm going to get to the customization of some stuff later. But the idea that when you are doing when you do some kind of ritual, there's always some sort of fallout. There's never a everything's perfect and wonderful and fluffy. So if you think that, then you got a little growing up to do if you think that magic and spirituality just makes everything fluffy. Because like if you do a spell work for a job or something and you get that job, guess what? That means somebody else didn't get it, and that means they might go hungry. You might do a spell to get rid, to if you try to manifest one thing, it's going to impact something else in your life. Not everything is perfect. Now you can argue with me that if you do all the right things, that no one's going to get affected by anything. But I think that there's always a give and take with every energetic exchange and every event that happens in our lives, whether there's magic in it or not. So let me keep going here. So, during the entrance exam, the language that, if you read the book, Q, when he's doing the entrance exam, he just starts to get this language that comes up through him that he's able to like write down and use in the entrance exam for various, like, I guess you could say, problems on the exam. That's an example of I think this is the correct term for it, glossolalia, which is speaking in tongues, which a lot of times is only associated with like demonic possession and stuff, but that's not where I'm taking this here. The idea is that when we speak through, whether it's a different language or just one that's randomly generated, like the example in the magician's book for the exam, is that that's more of a direct connection from the subconscious out front. And as I've explained in other videos, our subconscious is where all those archetypes and everything sit, which is what, and it connects to the collective unconscious, and that's where all of those, that wellspring of meaning and energy and things that belongs to all of humanity, that's the energy comes from there. So if we're able to pull that through us through something like speaking in tongues and glossolalia, which some people do in terms of their spell work, yeah, there's like structured chants and things. If you follow a system like the Golden Dawn, the Necronomicon, any of those kinds of things, there's structured chants and stuff. But if you go like some people do with the route of just speaking in almost like gibberish, it's almost like when people ohm to raise energy, or they just chant something repetitively to raise energy. We're using our vocality to bring energy into the space, and it doesn't rely so much on the meaning of the words, but our intention behind it, the energy behind it, because the intention and stuff, rather than the logical thinking of I'm doing this because da da da, because it's more connected to the subconscious, like I said, you get more of an access to all those archetypes and that energy that connects all of us and is all around us through the collective unconscious, the subconscious, and things like that. You want to learn a little bit more about this kind of connection-y stuff and how this works, you can check out my books, Magical Theater and Magical Mechanics. They're both on Amazon, and I go into this stuff quite a bit in those books. So, let's see. One of the other things is cacodemons, the ones that are put into all the graduates from break bills. That's essentially like having a servitor or an egregore, and it being activated by a certain word. That's also indicative of different magical practices, because we can program power words through repetition and subconscious programming and meaning that allow us to access certain states or even call upon different servitors and things like that, depending on what we do with our magical skills in time. Oh, done with one page. Let's flip it over. Oh, I think I already touched on this, but let me just go over it. One of the things that the Magicians does correctly, or another thing that it does correctly, is the influences of geographical locations, the moon cycle, and proximity to water, which is kind of like their main rules for magic, is pertinent to moon phases and can be indicative of certain energies and different types of magic, and worship are more effective depending on location. Oh yeah, so I already talked about the moon cycles and stuff, but think about this, right? So if you're people from different geographic locations around the world each had different deities that they worked with, and a lot of cultures thought of their place as like the center of the earth or where certain entities came down and visited them. And the idea that get different locations have different types of energy to them is a very interesting concept that's reflected in the Magicians, like how Fillory is absolutely full of magic. It's made of it. But the idea that I'm trying to get at here with the influences of where you are in relation to how magic works for you is the idea that working with Celtic magic over here, for example, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I'm just trying to draw an example, is I believe it's less effective over here than it is where it was originally made, because that's where the energies are that it comes from. So I might be a little bit hypocritical because I go through the Sumerian path and stuff like that, even though I'm here in the States. But the idea that I'm trying to generate, and I hope maybe you guys already get it, is that the influence of the location of where you are can have an effect on the magic that you use, whether it's stronger or not, depending on what the energy of the area is. Like the States would probably have more of a proclivity towards Native American practices because that's what was originally here. Does that make sense? I'm just gonna move on. The idea of a niffin being consumed by your magical energy if you don't perform it correctly and you don't execute things right. There's two things that I want to draw real world comparisons to with this. So in the book, it changes you into this supremely powerful being that's just absolutely selfish and stuff. So think about, have you guys ever met any spiritual people that absolutely are like, they're super cocky, like they know everything, and when honestly they don't, and they still have a lot to learn, but they kind of burn a lot of bridges and they turn everybody off basically because they just think that they're so full of it. Yeah, that's kind of a comparison to a Niffin. One of the other things is that, like, if you execute magic in a way that is not effective or like not proper and not safe with how you declare intentions, how you raise your energy, and depending on the practices that you use, you can really get hurt, whether it be from the fallout of the ritual itself or actually during the ritual through certain practices that I would deem to be dangerous, such as things that involve using blood and or substances. If you guys want to check out my video on why, I think I have a video on how like drugs and magic don't mix, and that could be an example, because it's like the flow of magic turns from a faucet to a fire hose. I'm gonna continue. So reliance on the self rather than tools, I really like that in the Magicians, because all the magical stuff is kind of done with your hands and your body and stuff, and tools are more seen as handicaps, which is really true. I mean, our wands and things like that are tools that allow us, more of a. We're humans. We're used to working with tools. We use a pen to write. We use a car to drive places. We use, a hammer to hit a nail in a wall. So we use tools as a way of augmenting what we want to do with our energy. And I don't want to say this about like, if you get advanced enough, blah, 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 but we have all those abilities within us, whether we use the tools or not. And I was using wands and things before. I think I have two of them back there behind me. back there behind me. I can't point. But, I mean, like, the reason why I made the Handy Sigil Magic book was because I really don't rely on too many tools anymore, which is also on Amazon, by the way. Shameless plugs all over the place. Yeah. The idea of metamath. Now, with, it's mentioned, I believe, in the TV show. In terms of like the Sumerian spirituality, for example, all the deities have a number, and I can remember a couple of my friends creating a depiction of a gate for the entity of Elu, where they were like, the math works out, and of course went way over my head, and still don't understand it. So you're gonna have to help me digest that, guys, or when you watch this and you're like, hey, let's talk about that. That'd be cool. But the idea that everything in reality has a structure with magic, and how math is a universal language, being able to use number correspondences and how math works to demonstrate that there is a structure to magic is a really great idea. I only got a couple more bullets anyway. Magic having consequences if not done properly, like what happened with Emily Greenstreet with her face. I think that was her, with her face getting messed up, and her boyfriend turning into a Niffin. Can't remember if that was the TV show, the book, or both at this point. But like I said, if magic is not executed properly with protections, intention, and how to properly structure it, you can have consequences. Oh, one of the other things is how once you learn the basics of magic, you can manipulate the junk out of it. I mean, I have all my books back there where I spend years studying stuff to understand how the magic of, or the structure of magic, and how to word intention, and how to work with certain deities, and do this and that, and sigils and god forms, and, journeying, astral projection, all that stuff. And once you kind of understand how all of those things work, you don't have to follow exactly what's in a book. Like the people that buy spell books and they read one of them for like a money spell or whatever, and they have like 4 or 5 little tools, and they just read a chant and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna get money. It doesn't work like that. You got to play around with it and create magic for yourself on your own with what works for you, and keep in mind the other stuff that I talked about, like the energy input and output. But the idea that you can take magic and customize it, like what they did when they first went into Fillory, and Penny came up with a magic missile spell, which is totally a Dungeons and Dragons throwback, which is great. Yeah, that was one of the really cool things. So the idea that you can manipulate it and make it extremely personal and stuff. So there's probably a lot more that I could add. If I ever sit down and brainstorm, I might make a part 2 to this. But this was the first video in my Magic in the Media series on how the magicians portrays magic, both on TV and in the books. And this is one of my longer videos and whatnot. But let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments. If you guys want to make suggestions on what I can do next, feel free to write it in the comments, or you can email me at priestthenecro@gmail.com. You can check out any of my other playlists for how to work with general magic stuff. That's my general magic playlist, how to work with the Simon Necronomicon, how to work with the art of tulpamancy, how to understand the theories of magic and what makes magic work within the confines of our universe. And I think that's about it for my playlist, but I might be missing one because it's early enough, and that was kind of a biggish topic. So let me know what you guys think about this, and good hunting.